Three interstellar shuttles pierced the upper edge of Earth's atmosphere, their sleek hulls gleaming against the vast curtain of blue below. The crafts glided in perfect formation, slipping smoothly through cloud layers until the lush green of the Amazon basin came into view. Inside, a group of alien students from across the galaxy pressed closer to the shuttle windows. They were the brightest minds from some of the universe's most prestigious academies, now embarking on a mission to the most feared planet in known space, Earth. In the Galactic Encyclopedia of Planetary Classifications, Earth held a unique title, Deathworld, a term not used lightly. It was reserved for planets that, by every measurable standard, should not support life, and yet somehow thrived with it in brutal, awe-inspiring abundance. As the shuttles descended, the students adjusted their protective suits. Each outfit came embedded with real-time environmental monitors, shielding generators, and translation interfaces. They weren't taking any chances. These were not the sterile biomes or controlled terrains they were used to. This was raw, untamed wilderness. Earth didn't tolerate mistakes. The landing was smooth. The shuttles touched down in a circular clearing surrounded by towering rainforest canopies, their tops swaying like waves in an ocean of green. The bay doors hissed open, and a wall of hot, wet air rushed inside. It clung to their skin like steam, and carried with it the sense of soil, rot, nectar, and something animal. Professor Vian stepped out first, tall and commanding with iridescent blue skin and long sensory tendrils that flicked through the air around her. She paused to absorb the moment. Her antennae vibrated gently, syncing with the planet's living pulse. Behind her, the students followed, boots sinking slightly into the damp floor of the clearing. Their expressions ranged from wonder to apprehension. Keep your sensors live. Stay inside the marked perimeters. Earth is beautiful, yes, but it does not forgive ignorance. We're here to learn and survive. The group moved with coordinated purpose. Among them was Dakota, small-framed and intellectually fearless. Her wide black eyes scanned every plant, every movement. She carried a multi-function scanner strapped to her wrist like a gauntlet, already mapping atmospheric data. At her side was Nevada, larger, more grounded. His instincts were always tuned toward danger, and even now his hand hovered near the activation glyph on his personal shield unit. The students formed a semicircle as Professor Veen activated a holographic projection above her palm. A route glowed into the air, marked in soft green, leading away from the clearing and into the forest. Our research outpost lies roughly 3 kilometers north. You'll take samples and record observations along the way. Earth is the finest classroom in the galaxy, but it's not a safe one. Treat it with respect. They set off in single file, brushing aside vines and stepping over gnarled roots. The jungle enveloped them quickly. Above, the canopy filtered sunlight into fractured rays that scattered over the mossy forest floor. The sounds were relentless. Chirps, buzzes, rustles, the distant haunting calls of unseen animals. Earth was alive, viscerally alive. Dakota lagged behind, mesmerized by a vine with glowing spots along its length. Her scanner blinked rapidly, displaying an unreadable chemical signature. Nevada turned back, his voice tense through the comms. Dakota, stay close. Don't get separated. She quickened her step, murmuring that she just wanted one more scan, when her wrist unit gave a sharp alert. A red flower with oily petals shivered as if aware of her presence. Professor Veen appeared beside her, already scanning the plant herself. That's Drosera magnifica, carnivorous. It traps insects using a sticky substance and digests them slowly. Touch it, and it might try you next. Dakota gave a nervous laugh and backed away. Suddenly, a loud rustle erupted from the undergrowth. The group spun around, bodies tense, shields humming to life. Something large was crashing through the foliage. It burst into the clearing with a flurry of leaves and snorts. An enormous rodent-like creature, its fur slick and eyes placid. Nevada lowered his guard just slightly. Capybara. Not a threat, just a local giant. The students exhaled, amused but sobered. Even the harmless creatures on Earth had a way of reminding them they were guests here. Fragile guests. As the capybara wandered toward a stream and disappeared behind some ferns, Professor Vane addressed the group again. This is what you must remember. On Earth, danger comes without warning. Never assume peace. Always be scanning. Always be listening. A sharp scream tore through the air behind them. They turned to see Dakota stumbling backward, her visor reflecting pure panic. At her feet, a serpent coiled, its scales a glossy pattern of black and yellow. Snake! Venomous, Nevada said quickly. Professor Vane didn't hesitate. Nevada. He activated his portable shield, stepping in front of Dakota. The low hum from the field disrupted the snake's concentration. It uncoiled slowly, hissing, then slipped back into the underbrush. Dakota's voice trembled. I didn't see it until I almost stepped on it. That's the point, Vane said, eyes sweeping over the group. Earth doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care where you came from. It only tests whether you're paying attention. The encounter shook them. Every step afterward was slower, more deliberate. The jungle no longer looked like a collection of plants and animals. It looked like a living gauntlet. Hours passed. They reached a series of thick vines stretching across their path, and Nevada sliced through them with a tool that emitted a concentrated vibration pulse. The trail narrowed, then opened into a wider path leading to the research outpost. Built on stilts and reinforced with metal supports, the structure looked out of place in the wilderness. Too clean, too artificial. But it was home for now. The group hurried inside, eager to escape the wet heat and shed their suits. The interior was functional. Bunk areas, a lab space, a ration prep unit. But the windows told the real story. Clouds were gathering, fast. Thunder rolled across the sky with increasing urgency. Vane scanned the weather data. Storm incoming. Earth storms are unpredictable and often violent. Elevate all equipment. Secure anything loose. You have 20 minutes. The sky darkened rapidly. Rain struck with the force of fists, turning the clearing into a basin of flowing water. The outpost groaned under the pressure of the wind. Outside, what had once been a gentle stream was now a surging torrent. Zip lines and tether points activated around the exterior of the outpost. 2 students, Alaska and Carolina, volunteered to check the communications array. Dakota joined them. They fought against the rising wind to reach the shed. Mud sucked at their boots and tree limbs crashed around them. When they reached the array, it was partially submerged. We'll have to jury-rig something tomorrow. We can't fix this now, Dakota shouted over the storm. Back in the outpost, water levels crept dangerously close to the lower platforms. The team worked non-stop to preserve samples, lift gear off the floor, and reinforce the outer walls. Hours passed in chaos. At one point, a branch shattered one of the auxiliary solar panels. Nevada and another student managed to remove it before it broke the panel completely. Vane gathered them after things had stabilized. Nature is not your enemy, but it is not your friend. It's indifferent. And that indifference is why Earth is a death world. As dawn broke, the storm subsided. The jungle glistened. The stream had become a river. Birds resumed their calls. Earth, like nothing had happened, moved on. But none of the students would forget that night. The storm had passed, but it left behind a jungle transformed. What was once a steady stream beside the research outpost had now doubled in size, rushing over its banks, dragging foliage and branches with it. Pools of standing water glistened in the early sunlight, steam rising as the canopy began to dry. Professor Vane called a morning briefing. The students, still groggy but alert, gathered around the central console in the outpost's main chamber. Most held warm ration drinks, their suits drying by the heater vents. They listened as she outlined their next objective. With the forest too wet and unstable for safe terrestrial scans, their focus would shift underground. 2 kilometers west, an ancient cave system cut through the roots of the Amazon, filled with mineral deposits, preserved fossils, and, if they were lucky, evidence of early human interaction with this hostile ecosystem. Earth's history is written in stone, she said. We are going to read some of it. The group packed light. Flash-based torches, reinforced climbing gloves, oxygen stabilizers in case of trapped air. Nevada took point, his natural caution serving well in unfamiliar terrain. Dakota walked beside him, her scanner newly calibrated to detect mineral signatures and energy fluctuations. The jungle was quieter than usual after the storm. Trees that had stood tall for decades now leaned, some split down the middle. The ground was soft and unstable in patches, forcing detours around thick mud and fallen trunks. A chorus of insects buzzed around them, louder now, as if reclaiming their space. They reached the cave entrance by mid-morning. Hidden behind a curtain of moss and vines, it was a narrow gap in the rock that opened wider just beyond the threshold. Veen checked her instruments, then nodded. Nevada ducked inside first, followed by the rest of the group in pairs. Inside, the world changed again. The air was cool and damp, echoing with distant drips. The walls sparkled with minerals, and thick stalactites hung like frozen knives from the ceiling. Flashlights danced over the interior, casting long shadows. Dakota ran her scanner along a wall etched with layered mineral veins. "Each layer is a record of time," she said softly, more to herself than anyone. Further in, they came across primitive paintings, simple images of animals, hunters, weapons. Figures with bowed legs and exaggerated arms chased prey through ochre strokes and charcoal lines. Carolina leaned in closer. "Early humans. Pre-agricultural era. That's a boar, probably, or a tapir." Tennessee recorded the images in 3D using a scanning drone. The reverence was palpable. This was no mere classroom. This was history, untouched, unfiltered, dangerous. Professor Veen stepped back and swept her gaze over the room. They documented the cave's biodiversity next. Albino insects, moss growing without light. Even a bioluminescent fungus forming slow-moving patterns along the stone. As they moved deeper into the cave network, they found signs of fossilized remains. Fragments of massive rib bones embedded in the walls. The vertebrae of some ancient, long-dead predator. Dakota ran her fingers gently along one of the larger bones. Her scanner confirmed the species belonged to the Pleistocene epoch. These creatures must have ruled Earth before humans ever picked up a spear. Veen knelt by a fossil partially buried under a flowstone deposit. Earth's challenge to life didn't begin with humans. The pressure to adapt and survive has shaped every creature on this planet for eons. That is why Earth is called a Deathworld. They continued deeper until the tunnel opened into a massive cavern. The air shifted, cooler, almost breathable without assistance. Water trickled from cracks in the ceiling, pooling into shallow basins that reflected their lights. It was here that they heard it, a low sound. Not quite a growl, but not natural either. The group froze. Nevada raised a hand, signaling silence. He swept the beam of his light across the room. Shadows danced, stretched, collapsed. The sound came again, low, echoing, resonant. No animal was visible. Veen tapped her scanner. The cave's acoustics are playing tricks. The frequencies bouncing. Could be water dripping into an echo chamber. But nobody moved for several long moments. Finally, they started back toward the entrance, more aware of every step, every sound. They had just passed the wall of cave paintings again when Dakota stopped suddenly. Something moved, up high. Everyone aimed their lights upward. Small shapes, wings, eyes that reflected the beams. Bats, hundreds of them. They hung in clusters, and now disturbed, they began to shift. Flapping, rising, a flurry of movement. The students ducked and crouched as the cloud of bats swirled past, a tidal wave of leathery wings and shrill cries. Nobody was hurt, but adrenaline surged through the group. Earth kept reminding them, nothing here was passive. Once back in the outpost, they gathered around the central table and debriefed. The footage of the paintings, the fossil scans, even the eerie sounds were all archived, but the experience had left them quieter than usual. Nevada summarized it best. Earth doesn't just kill through predators. It wears you down, keeps you off balance. It's constant. The group agreed. That night, the jungle came alive once again. Veen instructed them to monitor nocturnal activity using sensor drones placed outside the outpost perimeter. The devices projected light pulses and recorded heat signatures. Dakota, Georgia, and Nebraska volunteered to deploy the units. As they moved along the edge of the clearing, The dense foliage rustled with activity. They caught glimpses of glowing eyes, quick flashes of movement. Monkeys, rodents, insects larger than they'd expected. The night in the Amazon wasn't silence. It was layered sound. Cracks, calls, rustles. Every second felt like being watched. Back inside, they calibrated the sensors and projected real-time thermal images on the wall screen. A cluster of creatures passed by one of the perimeter units. Four-legged, sleek, low to the ground. At first, the system flagged them as unknown. Then the heat signature updated. Jaguar, 1, 2, 3. Too close for comfort. The lights were switched on at full intensity, casting bright beams across the clearing. And there it was, just beyond the tree line. Eyes gleaming. A single jaguar, larger than expected, muscles rippling under its golden coat. It didn't flinch under the light. It watched them. Nobody moved. Nevada had already positioned himself near the deterrent system. He activated a high-frequency emitter, non-lethal, but designed to discourage. The sound rang out, inaudible to the students, but enough to make the jaguar bare its teeth, snarl, and slowly turn away, melting back into the shadows. They stayed on alert for hours after that. Professor Veen addressed the group again. Earth's apex predators aren't just dangerous. They're smart, confident, efficient. This planet has never offered anything for free. You want to survive here? You adapt, fast. Tennessee leaned back in his chair, watching the sensor data still streaming on the screen. His voice broke the silence. How do humans live here without shields? Without drones? Veen's answer was simple, because they had no choice. The following morning, the group decided to shift from passive observation to direct study of predator behavior. If they were going to understand the ecosystem of a Deathworld, they had to witness the predator-prey relationship firsthand. A known wolf pack had been tracked moving through the area in recent weeks. With a combination of terrain data and motion detection drone footage, they pinpointed a vantage spot near a wide clearing, perfect for observation. By late morning, the group had reached the location and set up portable camo blinds with motion sensors. Nevada and Georgia handled the drone deployment. Dakota calibrated the telescopic lenses. Everyone went quiet. The forest around them stirred. Hours passed. Then movement. A pack of gray wolves, 7 total, emerged from the edge of the clearing. They moved with precision, not wasting a step. Ears up, tails down. Communication was silent but obvious. The pack split, some circling left, others right. They waited. A deer stepped into the clearing, head down, nibbling on broad leaves. In seconds, the pack converged. The strike was coordinated, devastating, efficient. One wolf drove the deer forward, another flanked. The alpha led the chase and took the neck. Silence followed. The students didn't speak. They recorded, they analyzed. After the wolves began feeding, Veen signaled for them to retreat quietly. Back at the outpost, they watched the footage again. Every movement, every tactic. Earth wasn't chaos, it was strategy. Pure, ancient, refined by evolution. Dakota closed her report log with one final entry. This isn't just survival. It's a dance. A brutal, perfect balance. That's why Earth is called a death world. The wolves were gone, but the experience lingered. The footage played on a loop in the outpost's main hall, and the students watched in near silence. Even those who had studied predator-prey dynamics before were struck by the wolves' coordination, their intelligence, the unflinching precision in the kill. There was no malice in it, just necessity. On Earth, every breath was earned. Professor Veen paused the footage and addressed the group. Observation is valuable, but Earth isn't just about what you can measure. It's also about what you can learn from those who live with it, who survive in harmony with it. She outlined their next task, a visit to a nearby human settlement. Not a city, not even a town, an indigenous tribe whose ancestors had lived in this part of the Amazon for centuries. The tribe had agreed, through a diplomatic exchange, to share some of their knowledge. The journey was short but demanding. The terrain remained unstable from the earlier storms, forcing the group to reroute multiple times. They crossed fallen trees, edged around flooded lowlands, and moved through dense stretches of untouched forest. The scent of wet leaves and sap was heavy in the air. As they neared the village, the jungle seemed to thin naturally. The homes appeared without fanfare. Wooden frames, thatched roofs, structures lifted slightly from the ground on stilts. No fences, no gates, just humans living among the trees. The tribe's leader, an elder named Meraki, greeted them near a communal fire pit. His clothing was simple but adorned with woven patterns and carved bone trinkets. His eyes were steady. His posture was unbending, like an old tree that had seen many storms. "You've come to learn what it means to live here," he said, his voice deep and steady. "Then you must listen to the forest, not just your instruments." He led the group through the village. Children played near the trees, chasing each other barefoot. Elders prepared food with roots and herbs, slow roasting fish over open flames. The students walked quietly, watching, absorbing. Meraki stopped at a broad-leafed vine and tugged gently at its stem. "This is kurar. It can paralyze a monkey or ease the pain of childbirth. It depends on how you use it. Earth doesn't give you answers. It gives you choices. Some kill, some heal. The balance is in how much you take and why." Georgia took notes rapidly. Dakota filmed the interaction. Nevada scanned the plant, recording its chemical structure. Meraki led them to the riverbank, where several tribe members fished using handmade spears. There were no nets, no engines, just patience, skill, an understanding of timing, flow, silence. "Balance is the rule here," Meraki said. "We take only what we need. Anything more is a debt, and Earth always collects its debts." The group followed him back toward the village as the sun began to dip, casting long gold shadows through the trees. The tribe prepared a small ceremony to honor the forest spirits. It was a quiet affair. Music played with flutes carved from bone and drums stretched with cured hide. Songs in a language older than any star chart. The students sat around the fire, surrounded by people who had lived in this environment for generations. No armor, no shields, no advanced tech. Just understanding and respect. Meraki sat beside the fire and told them stories. Not myths, but lived truths. The forest teaches us every day. We learn from its cycles, its harshness, its kindness. When the rain floods, we build higher. When the animals vanish, we follow new tracks. You survive not by overpowering nature, but by learning to move with it. Dakota watched the flames reflect in the old man's eyes and felt something settle inside her. A stillness, a clarity. After the ceremony, the students were offered a simple meal. Roasted fish, cooked roots, fruits. It was quiet, peaceful. The kind of peace none of their simulations or digital classrooms could replicate. Before they left, Meraki gave each student a carved stone, small, smooth, worn by river water. "This is not a souvenir. It is a reminder. You carry the story now. Share it, but do not forget it." The group returned to the outpost just before another storm swept through. The rain came hard, louder this time, and the river surged higher than before. Lightning flashed through the sky, illuminating the jungle in stark black and white silhouettes. Veen convened a quick strategy session. They would need to evacuate to higher ground if water levels kept rising. No hesitation, no debate. Emergency kits were packed. Drones were grounded. Data drives were sealed and stored in waterproof containers. Nevada took lead again, guiding the group along the emergency escape route mapped out days before. The forest was not the same as before. Paths were gone, erased by floodwater. What had been solid ground was now mud and roots. Trees groaned in the wind. Leaves whipped through the air. The rain hammered everything. Visibility was limited to a few meters at best. Link up and move. One line. No gaps. They pushed forward, step by step. Dakota slipped once, caught by Nebraska. Tennessee used a branch to pry loose a fallen log blocking their path. Water reached their knees in some spots. The group moved slowly, methodically, trusting Nevada's instincts. After hours of exhausting effort, they reached a sloped ridge where the ground held. The hilltop was muddy but safe enough to build temporary shelter. They deployed emergency tarps and wrapped themselves in thermal gear. The group huddled beneath the tarps, soaked and shivering, but alive. "This is Earth testing us again," Veen said. "Not with animals, not with predators, but with its own force, its unpredictability, its refusal to be tamed." They passed the night there, sharing dry rations and heat packs. No one complained. No one panicked. They were tired but steady. Something had changed in all of them. At some point in the night, the rain began to soften. The wind eased. The forest shifted again, from fury to recovery. Birds began to call. Insects returned to their usual chorus. Water still dripped from every surface, but it no longer threatened. It simply was. As morning broke, Dakota sat on a rock at the edge of the ridge, watching the river below. It had swallowed the old trail. Trees leaned at odd angles, roots exposed like broken bones. But the sun still rose. The forest still stood. "This planet doesn't kill for sport," she said. "It just demands respect. And if you give it that, it teaches you how to survive." Back at the outpost later that day, they recovered what gear they could. Damage was minimal, thanks to their fast action. Veen called it a success, not because of what they saved, but because of what they learned. "You're starting to think like Earthlings now," she told them. "Not just reacting, but anticipating. Not just observing, but adapting." The group spent the afternoon cataloging what they had experienced, documenting both the tribal wisdom and their storm response. They sent out summary logs to the orbiting ship for archival. Future students would study these logs. Future expeditions would prepare differently, better because of them. That evening, the jungle was calm. Mist curled around tree trunks. Frogs chirped in the undergrowth. Everything smelled of wet bark and fresh earth. The group sat outside the outpost, not speaking much, just watching, listening. No data pad could replicate this. No lecture hall could contain it. This was the truth of Earth, and they were beginning to understand why the rest of the galaxy feared it. The final days on Earth approached with a mix of anticipation and reluctance. The students had come expecting danger, had prepared for discomfort, but they hadn't expected this reverence they now felt for the planet. It had tested them, yes, but it had also taught them in ways no other world could. Professor Vane had one final field lesson in mind. They would revisit a high ridge overlooking the rainforest, a natural observation point where they could reflect on the ecosystem from above, see the interconnectedness laid out before them like a living tapestry. But first, there was one last task. They had recovered most of their gear after the flood, but their long-range communications array had taken too much damage. Before they could depart Earth, they needed to repair the uplink tower deeper in the forest. The storm had knocked the structure from its stabilizers. If they wanted their shuttle to locate them precisely, the signal had to be restored. Nevada, Tennessee, and Dakota volunteered to lead the repair crew. The hike to the uplink tower was uneventful at first. The air was thick and warm, heavy with the scent of post-rain humidity. Everything around them was alive again. Birds called from the canopy, monkeys darted between trees, insects buzzed and clicked constantly. When they arrived, the tower lay slanted against a tree. Its support frame snapped and half buried in the mud. They worked fast, anchoring a new base and rewiring the array. Dakota crawled beneath the collapsed housing to access the signal core, while Tennessee stabilized the upper panel with a reinforced scaffold. It was nearing completion when they heard the sound. Not thunder, not wind, a growl. Low, deep, close. The forest fell quiet. Even the insects stopped. They turned. It was there. A jaguar. Not curious like before. This one was leaner, hungrier, its eyes fixed on them. It crouched low, body coiled like a spring. Nevada raised the deterrent emitter slowly, not aiming, just warning, but the jaguar didn't retreat. It stepped forward. Dakota froze. Tennessee moved closer to her, keeping his movements small. Nevada activated the emitter. A piercing frequency burst into the air. The cat flinched, snarled, but it didn't flee. Instead, it circled. The forest held its breath. Professor Veen's voice crackled through their comms, distorted by canopy interference. Report status. Nevada didn't answer. He focused on the cat. Waited. The jaguar lunged. Nevada dropped the emitter and dove, catching the cat with a low-frequency shield burst. The field shimmered around him, absorbing the impact. The jaguar struck, staggered, then rolled away with a roar. Tennessee hit the override button on the tower, forcing the system online. It pinged loud and clear, a beacon blinking to the stars. The jaguar disappeared into the trees. Silence returned. Everyone was breathing hard. No injuries, but the weight of what just happened clung to them. Back at the outpost, they didn't speak of the encounter for hours. They didn't need to. Everyone felt it. The final test. That evening, Professor Veen gathered the students at the ridge. From this height, the jungle seemed to go on forever. Trees stretched beyond the horizon. Birds soared between branches. The sun sank in slow motion, casting long shadows that reached toward the sky. They sat in a circle around a low hollow fire, their suits off, only mesh liners and gear packs remaining. Comfortable, worn in, changed. This was never about Earth's danger. It was about your willingness to face it, to understand it. This planet doesn't welcome visitors. It challenges them. It doesn't want to be conquered. It wants to be respected. She gestured to the trees. Everything here survives through balance. The predator and prey, the flood and the drought, the vine that heals and the one that poisons. And now you know. Firsthand. Nevada spoke quietly. I used to think Deathworld meant everything tried to kill you. But it's more than that. It means everything here is constantly changing, testing, pushing. If you're not evolving, you're gone. Tennessee nodded. It's like the planet is alive in a way other worlds aren't, and it doesn't wait for you to catch up. Dakota smiled, more tired than amused. It's not about strength. It's about awareness, about knowing when to move, when to stop, when to observe. That's what kept us alive. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the jungle shimmer in the fading light. Fireflies began to flicker between branches. Somewhere far off, a howler monkey let out a call that echoed through the hills. Veen closed the final entry in the expedition log. Earth's lesson is not in how it kills, but in how it forces life to adapt, to think, to evolve. That is why it is feared, and that is why it must be studied. The shuttle would arrive at dawn. They would leave as quietly as they had come, their data safely transmitted, their logs encrypted and stored. But none of them would leave unchanged. That night they shared one last meal at the outpost, rations mixed with local fruit. Simple but satisfying. They passed around Maraki's stones again, tracing the river-worn curves with their fingers. Nevada stood and held his up. This isn't just Earth's story anymore. It's ours too. We came here to observe, but we survived. We adapted. That makes us part of it now. The others nodded. They didn't need a ceremony. Earth had already given them one. As the stars emerged overhead, sharp and brilliant in the clearing sky, the students watched their final night on the Deathworld stretch out around them, untamed, powerful, and deeply, profoundly alive. They didn't fear it anymore. They respected it. And in that respect, they had found something they hadn't expected, a deeper understanding of life itself.